Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Cardona, and I am going to be walking you through how to replace the battery for an HP Elitebook 740G5. Now, with some of the Elitebooks in this model, and actually some of the older models, the battery has been known to expand and actually split the case. So, as you can see with this laptop here, I'm just going to turn this around so you can see it a little better. This is the back of the laptop. And right on the front side here, you can see that the battery is expanded and actually split the laptop case. Okay, so we need to get that out of there. We can't plug this in or use it again until we've replaced the battery. The battery is actually made of a lithium-ion compound, which is some really nasty stuff, and we don't want that exploding and getting on our users. So, I'm going to be walking us through how to replace that battery and get this fixed. So, just kind of a before, what it looks like now, and then we'll show you what it looks like once the battery is replaced. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. We're going to take a look at a few tools that we need. So, first off, anytime you're working with electronics, you want something similar to this. This has a piece of metal that's going to make contact with your skin here, and then it's got a clip on the end which helps ground you. Now, you may not think about it, but if you've ever rubbed your feet on the carpet and then touched something and that little spark kind of gives things a shock, well, that little spark to electronics is very powerful and can do a lot of damage to some of the delicate equipment that's inside here. So, first thing you want to do is get one of these ground wrists or grounding devices. I'm going to go ahead and clip this to my workstation here so I am grounded. That'll be step one for me. And I'm going to bring in a couple of other tools that we're going to need. So, I've got a nice kit. This here is just a magnet that I'm going to use to capture the screws, the ones that do come loose. Some of them actually stay embedded into the cover, and I won't really need to use this, but the screws are small. They can fall into the carpet, get lost very easily, so you want somewhere where you can keep your screws. So I'm going to use this. This is a standard tech kit. If you open this up, you'll notice that this has got several different bits inside of it. It's also got the driver. We're going to use a Phillips head bit, also with a T9 torque driver, to remove the cover and also the battery. And the last thing that I've got here is just something that's going to help me separate the frame from the body if needed, but you can kind of see that that's got a flat edge on it. You can kind of see that, so that I can kind of get in and pop that open if I need to and pull the back side of that laptop open. So those are the basic utensils that I'm going to use, or the basic tools that I'm going to use for this particular project. So I am going to set this just aside here where you can see it, and I'm going to turn this laptop around. This will give me access to the screws. You're going to see screws on each side, one in the middle, 3 on the back side, and then there's usually a couple of screws embedded in these holes here. You can't really see them. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and loosen those up and get the cover off. So I'm going to set this down on a nice flat surface, make sure that I'm grounded. I'm going to take my toolkit, remove the driver, and I am going to use a Phillips head for this. This is a PZ1 driver. So I'm going to go ahead and set that into my screwdriver here. And I'm going to loosen all of these screws. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe that these are actually anchored, so I won't need my magnet just yet, but I'm going to set it on the top here, just in case I need it for the internal screws. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And you can see that that popped because it was under pressure from the battery pushing against it. So I like to go ahead and release that one first, and Then I'm just going to go and give these about 10 turns a piece. To get these loose. And you can't see these, they're kind of inset, but they are down in there. So I'm going to go and give those a turn. And it looks like they stay in as well. And we'll loosen the other one. Here's some popping. It makes me think that maybe this is just a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down a size. So I'm going to return that back. And just going to go with the Phillips 0. Just to make sure that I don't strip out these screws, it's important to use the right size tool. Looks like that's loose. Let me get these on the front end. So I'm just going to turn this so I can get a better angle at it. You can see that that's under a lot of tension. It just popped right open. Okay, so now all my screws are loose, but since that battery's put so much pressure on this, I'm not going to need to use this tool, I'm thinking, to spread it. However, if I needed to get in here and do a RAM upgrade or something else, I may use this tool. And what I would do is I would just find an edge, I would get this underneath, and I would gently lift this tray up. But as you can see, after loosening the screws, that's going to come right off. So I'm going to set this aside. And this is what we're working with. You can't really see that, but I'm going to show you a side view. I don't know if you can tell how puffy that is, but that's a very puffy battery. It looks like it's just about ready to blow up. Okay, on the inside here, there are screws that this battery mounts to, and I am going to use a torque head for that. So I'm going to put this down, and I am going to get the T9 torque fitting. It's got a little star head on it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's a torque driver, T9, and that's what we're going to need to use to remove these screws on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and use this to remove the battery mount screws. These ones actually come loose. So as they come loose, you'll notice that my driver actually has a magnet on it. So I'm start to set each one of those screws down onto the magnet and continue to remove each one that's attached to the battery mount. Okay. Now this battery actually just has batteries that, screws that secure it in this middle section here. From there, it just kind of slides under and stays in place there. One thing we got to do though before we can remove this battery is there's a connection here that connects it to the motherboard. So I actually do need one other tool because I don't want to use anything metal against that because it is very delicate. And again, I don't want to mess with any of the circuitry there. So I am going to use one of these. It's commonly used as to remove the glass off of cell phones or tablets and things like that, but it's got this nice edge on it, which means I can use this to gently push this connector out of its spot. And I'm just going to grab the wires on one end and help it along. And there it is. It's disconnected. So the connector has been removed. I can now go ahead and lift this battery out of place. And if you couldn't see it before, you can see how poofy it is now. So I'm going to set that down for a second. One of the other things that we'll need for this install is going to be the replacement battery. So I've already contacted HP. They've sent me a replacement battery, and we're going to go ahead and install this. I'm going to set this aside. Now by comparison, if we look at these, maybe you can tell a little bit more just how poofy this is. The normal battery, this is one that's kind of exploded. As you can see, there's a huge difference there. Okay, this HP actually provides us with a package that's built for hazardous materials. We'll send this back to them so that they can dispose of it properly. You'd never throw these away in the trash. Very bad for the environment. Okay, so for my good battery, what I'm going to do is I am going to slide it into place, like so. You can see everything matches up with the mounts that were there previously. All my screw holes match up. And I'm just going to do everything in reverse. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect this back to the motherboard. This is already set into place. You can see that that's sitting nice and flat. I can take my torque screwdriver and grab my screws one at a time. Start to put those back in. I'm just going to start on the edges. Being careful not to touch anything in here if you don't have to. Again, electricity flows through us and you don't want to disrupt any of the circuitry that's in here. And place that last screw in. Alright, hard part is done. So you can now see that battery is now set back into place. We've got our connector reconnected, and everything is secured back down with the torque screws. Alright. Okay, last thing that we need to do is go ahead and put the cover back on. So I'm going to grab the cover here. And again, the screws that went to the cover are anchored a little bit so they don't all the way drive out, which is great. Makes things a little bit easier. But what I'm going to do also is, this fan is really dirty. I wish I had a can of air, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this and kind of get some of that loose stuff off of there. Yeah, kind of nasty. Just want to kind of assist that the best I can, because that actually can cause some of this battery bloating as well. If we get too much stuff stuck in this fan actually keeps this heat sink cool, which keeps the rest of the system cool, so we want to make sure that that's optimum as well. Okay, for our purposes now we're done. I'm going to go ahead and reattach the cover. So we'll just set it right back into place, and I'm going to gently just press down on this until I hear the snaps. There are latches. When these are lined up properly, everything will go neatly back into place. Okay. Next I'm going to swap out my torque driver for the Phillips driver. And I'm going to tighten the screws down out here. Just hand tighten, you don't want to over tighten these. And 2 more to go. Nice and snug. And that's it. Set my tools aside here. Actually, you shouldn't always put your tools away right away, but I'm feeling pretty confident about this. I'm going to pack these things up. And now we'll take a look at the finished product. So as you saw it in the beginning, this edge was split and bloated. You can see now that that's perfectly sealed. This is just the opening of the laptop, but you can see that everything reformed and that gap that was there is now gone. Okay, there you go. So we went from a piece of machinery that was dangerous and on the verge of not being able to be used to almost like new again. So I will always test these. I do have a power cable close by, which I will go ahead and grab here. We will plug this in and just verify that we've got power and no errors. So I'm going to open up this laptop, power it on, and as you can see, our machine is starting, no beeps, no errors. That's it. Thank you for spending time. That's how you change the battery on an HP Elitebook.